Hey, this is Marc Dantonio. I'm an astronomer. This is kind of what we look like. And I'm here at the UFO MegaCon in Laughlin, Nevada for the second year in a row because I'm going to speak about astronomy and where our science has reached its limits at times. But if you're interested in learning a little bit more about astronomy and exoplanets, which is my specialty, then you can pick up the book, The Populated Universe, which is actually a wonderful way of introducing yourself to how life evolved on the Earth, how we're going to find extraterrestrial life, both in our solar system and farther out. Ooh. And you'll learn about the search for extraterrestrial life as well. So it's a really fun book. I had a lot of fun writing it, and it's updated right up until just a week and a half ago. So it's a live publishing thing where you publish it on demand. I hope you enjoy it. Come to the UFO MegaCon. If you haven't been here, well, you're missing something, okay? It's really fun. And Captain Ron, great guy. Don't tell him I said that. It goes to his head.
Hey, truth be told, Captain Ron here. We are at the Mega UFO Conference.
Exactly.
Look who's here. Marc Dantonio came over. Yeah. I saw him in Phoenix at the UFO, remember, in
Yes,
Phoenix.
UFO Congress, that was the time.
UFO Congress was awesome, but I didn't get a chance to sit down with you.
No,
you were busy as hell.
we tried, and it just didn't work out.
Now I got you.
Now we're
really
here.
Appreciate
And
it.
this is him. This is the guy.
I'd like to start off with, we were at the Conscious Life Expo last week, and a lot of people were talking about parallel universes and all that. Yours is an astronomy background, primarily. So what is the front running theories right now? There's string theory. What's going on with these parallel universes? How do you explain that?
Here's what's going on in my mind. Okay, when the universe was created, we call it the Big Bang. It's a huge thing, and it's expanding outward. And of course, all things that we know of were created there. But there's a problem with that, Ron. Okay, the problem is that if we look at how much mass there is in the universe, we don't have enough mass to have actually created a Big Bang that we can see. There's a lot of missing mass, and so that spawned other exotic theories. Theories that at first might have been kind of really on the fringe, but now are kind of more mainstream a little bit. One of those theories is that maybe the Big Bang was sort of a little squirt off of another set of bangs that occurred.
Okay.
All right, and so that would mean that our universe was actually spawned at the same time as other universes. Now, as humans, puny little tiny humans that can't even get far out of our own solar system yet, the universe seems so vast that we can't even imagine what's at the edge of our universe, never mind what's beyond it or
Right.
parallel to it. And that's going to probably persist for some time.
When they say parallel, does that mean that there's one other one, or you always hear this multiverse?
Well, I was getting to that.
Oh,
okay?
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, because if we were just one of multiple bangs, okay, because I used plural, that's bangs, maybe that means that we do have a multi-universe concept out there, multiverse. Does that mean that all these extra universes that are out there can spawn life as we know it? We don't know. We don't know. It's possible, but I don't know.
Yeah.
There's theories that say, well, some of the universes might not be conducive to the formation of life. Why? Well, because maybe atomic structure works differently in other universes. In our universe, we have what seem to be templates provided by the universe. Things like the carbon atom is sort of like the granddaddy of all elements. It bonds with more things than any other element in the periodic table. So when people say, well, what about silicon-based life? A distant second to carbon's capability. So most likely carbon is going to be the front runner in
any universe.
Maybe in a universe where carbon can exist.
Okay.
Okay, so that said, I think that we're made of carbon, and we're also consist of DNA. DNA is another template provided by the universe. Every creature on this planet has DNA, right? That sort of says something. It's like, ding, DNA is very important. In school we learned what it was called, but we never knew what it really meant. Deoxyribonucleic acid. Wow,
Yeah.
Strings of these chains of amino acids, right, all together, right? 4 basic ones, right? Well, it doesn't matter, because the bottom line is, when we replicated DNA, when we do as human beings, as the Earth generates new DNA in its creatures, right? This DNA helix unzips, and you have one strand now, and that one strand goes off to a place in the cell, and another strand is added onto it that mimics it. It copies it exactly, symmetrically. Well, maybe that symmetry has been brought to the macro scale. You have 2 eyes, 2 nostrils. You're symmetric around your center. You have this bilateral symmetry. All creatures have it. It's, I think, a product of the DNA substructure. Okay? What does that all mean? It just means that I think that life, as we know it, comes from the existence of these templates in the universe. And if it happened here, it happened elsewhere.
In our universe.
In our universe.
Okay.
That's right. Now, if it's parallel worlds, well, now we're talking about something different because we don't know what are in parallel worlds. We just know that we can't find the mass to make the Big Bang right in our universe. There's not enough mass to have made any kind of a Big Bang here, but we're working on it. We're gaining more momentum with that. I mean, you heard of dark matter, you heard of dark energy.
Sure, of course.
Both of those qualities were discovered because of missing information. When a galaxy rotates, we think the stars near the center should rotate faster around the middle and, slower around the outside, like Mercury zipping around the sun and Pluto just lazily going around yawning. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, that's what we thought might happen at the large scale with a galaxy. But you look at galaxies, you see the stars in the middle are kind of going slow and the stars on the outside are whipping around really fast. In other words, it's rotating like a rigid disk, almost. That violates physics that we know. It would, in other words. So that's why they said, well, wait a minute. If there was a giant halo of this other stuff around the galaxy that we cannot see, that's the dark matter.
Dark matter, right.
Then we would be able to account for this extra gravity helping to assist these other stars in moving around and making the speeds even out. So that's one theory. The other theory is that this dark matter out there might not be such matter after all. It might actually be coincident. And this is a theory now, not my theory. Okay, so I can't be blamed for this. I'm just reiterating.
Some of this mainstream stuff is out there, but go ahead.
Yeah, but this is not mainstream yet. But
okay.
And it's not my theory, but I'm repeating it just to be thorough.
Okay.
There's some theories that say that we're looking at coincident galaxies from different parallel universes.
Yeah, see, I've heard this, yeah.
That mass is what's causing the galaxies to rotate as one consistent disk, so to speak. Do I believe that?
It's hard to get my brain around that. That's a tough
It's
one.
hard to get a brain around what dark matter is.
Yeah.
And it's even harder to get your brain around what dark energy is. Dark energy came about because of the fact that the universe is expanding, right? Okay, so what? Edwin Hubble found that in the 20s. We know that, right? Edwin Hubble,
that,
famous astronomer.
Yeah.
But then you go back now and you look at the Planck telescope, looking at the universe and looking at the cosmic background radiation and all these other aspects of this distant universe. And you discover that the expansion rate of the universe that Hubble found, that we called the Hubble constant, is not constant. It's getting bigger, meaning the universe is expanding at a faster and faster rate. That is acceleration. So what does that mean? Oh boy, that's a problem.
Yeah,
See, because we reverse engineered this expansion of the universe, didn't we? And we came back to time zero based on Hubble's constant. And that
to get to the Big Bang.
To get to the Big Bang and give us the age of the universe. 13.8 billion years.
Okay.
That's right. Write that in stone. Poof, with a big stamp. Well, it turns out maybe that's wrong, because the Hubble constant, not being constant, is telling us now, well, maybe we're looking at 12.6 billion years for the age of the universe. That's a problem. But it is something that it shows us that this expansion rate is accelerating. And now you ask the other question, why? Why is it accelerating?
Yeah.
We don't know. So we invoke something else.
Well, before we used to think it was also possibly collapsing, right? They didn't know.
Right, because they thought the acceleration would slow down.
Correct.
The speed
and
would
then
slow
maybe
down.
it would contract.
And, right, exactly so. The mass maybe in the middle would pull back and say, oh, let's collapse again.
Like a
So it'd be
breath.
and that led to other theories like the oscillating universe. Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, the fact of the findings so far seem to indicate that we're looking at a universe that's accelerating outward for one thing, and the thing causing the acceleration outward is probably nothing in our own universe. It's possible that it's something outside the border of our universe pulling the universe outward with it. I know that sounds like a fudge factor.
You see, but then it's going to go away forever, and that'll be it. The oscillating universe, at least we would regenerate and start again.
That's right.
And that I can get my head around.
Yes.
Expanding forever for once, where's it going? And then are we going to get how far apart, right?
Come on, you're asking these hard questions.
Well, listen, that's what you're here for.
You're asking these hard questions like, what is this thing expanding into?
Right.
Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
But we do know that it's expanding into something, don't we? Otherwise, it couldn't. The expansion is a very real thing. So, what's it expanding into? Is there just a void out there of nothingness that it's expanding into? If we could see past all this, we'd know.
Right.
But we can't.
Yeah, these are two big questions.
No, they're questions that we can only speculate about. And at a UFO conference, anything's possible. Back there in those rooms, people they talk about the craziest stuff back there. But some of these people are extremely intelligent. I'm saying that right now. They're very smart. All right.
Definitely.
And I say that to all of you. I do. Okay, because I know that I wouldn't be here if I didn't think there were smart people behind me in those rooms. They really are smart people, and they know what they're talking about too. Some of them are kind of out there, okay, but some of them are really they tell some really good information. They have some really good stories to tell, and they actually have some great information.
Well, sure, and a lot of these things, as we know, as you just pointed out, they change over time. That we used to think there were no planets around stars.
Oh yeah.
Then they were.
And I have a story about that.
Yeah, right, please tell that. I love that.
Because what he's referring to is when I was getting my degree in astronomy, the director of my observatory that I was working for, basically, we had a little argument, and the result of that argument was that I came up with the name of my future book. Okay, and here's how.
A few years ago.
This was a few years ago.
Yeah.
This is actually 1981.
There you go.
Don't tell anybody.
You were 4, right?
I was this many. Okay. It turns out that when I was talking to him, I said to him, I go, I believe it's a populated universe. And he looks over his glasses. He goes, a populated universe? I go, yeah. And I said to him what I mentioned before. We're carbon-based creatures on the planet. We have bilateral symmetry. Every creature has DNA. These are templates the universe has provided for life on this planet, and it's proliferated. It's in the deepest oceans. It's found in the most
every
unbelievable,
corner of the earth, sure.
Inhospitable locations. Too hot for us, too cold for us, but it's there. Life of some form or another. So it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and it's actually learned how to deal with its environment. It copes so well in general. It's a template, I said to him. I said, so that's why I think it's a populated universe. There's going to be other life out there. And I didn't even talk intelligent life. I mean, if I went down the intelligent life path, he would have kicked me right out.
Well, that's the next level, too. It's is there a life out there? Is it intelligent life? And has it been here? Those are the...
Exactly so. And I think he was afraid I was going to go down the UFO path on him. Okay, after all, I had joined the Mutual UFO Network when I was 11 years old.
See?
Okay, that was 2 years after it started, 1971.
Awesome.
11 years old. I'm an old guy. The truth is, okay, when you talk about life, I said to him that knowing all these things, don't you think that's a possibility? He says, well, all we know about is the Earth, and as far as I'm concerned, that's all there is. I went, okay. So I went away. I finished my degree, went on to do what I do in science. And in 1989 or so, when the first planet was announced, I went right back to that university, peeked into his office, and he was on the phone at the time. And he's looking at the phone. He sees me in the office. He goes, all right, and he puts the phone like in the crook of his neck, and he puts his hand over the receiver and says, "It was only one planet."
Right. He knew what you came for. That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's great.
There was only one planet, and I go, just the beginning,
Yeah, right.
And he goes, he gets back on his call. That's actually the last time I saw the man. He passed away, not too long after that. But he was just a really good guy. But he represented the way science works sometimes. It has blinders on and doesn't deviate from the path. That's kind of necessary in some parts of the astronomy and other sciences. You have to stay on that path so that you're not distracted by other could-be possible things. So that you find the answers you're seeking without deviating, without getting distracted. So we do need that. I'm one of those people that I do get distracted. Oh, look, a squirrel. I do get distracted. Okay, but I don't allow it to get too far into my head.
Right.
But I will get distracted sometimes, and that's why I've learned to speculate about things. And so I'm a little more open-minded, which is, I guess, a part for the course, right?
Right. Well, but in science, that's tough sometimes, right?
It is,
they
you know,
yeah.
in general, and not including art, because this guy here, this guy at my observatory was actually a very nice guy. But in other sciences, you find there's a certain reticence to believe other things. You know, they're kind of reticent. They don't want to go down those paths because they're worried about tenure. They're worried about other things. Get this. It wasn't too long ago that if you said you believed there was other life, just other life, not intelligent life, but other life out there, you might actually get in trouble with your university for suggesting there were other planets that had life.
See, that's amazing, because now I think the consensus is that there is life, and the debate is whether or not it's been here.
And in fact, the debate is whether it's intelligent and has made it across the Gulf to us.
Sure.
Well, you see, that question is where it is now. That's like saying, okay, we know that we can race on a boat across the water at 100 miles an hour. Wow. But I don't think you can take a plane and go past the sound barrier. No way. No way. The plane will blow up. It'll melt. It could never happen until it did.
Right.
And then it became a higher thing. Well, I think we can go Mach 2.
Well, this is like what we talked about with the universe thing, that we used to think that our solar system was, in fact, the entirety of the universe.
That's right.
And then they discovered that we could look beyond that, and then we became this little tiny part of that.
Yeah.
It's because you can only go with what you know. But it's interesting how these things evolve. It's just, you have to keep pushing. So going with the planets, so then after 89 there was one.
Yeah. And
then we found, what, like 8 more? And
well,
then
more and more and more. So now
Now the mainstream thinking is that it is more likely there are planets than not, or something.
It's even better than that.
Oh, okay.
It's even better than that. And if you act now, we can send you the greatest hits. The greatest hits of. It's even better than that because right now where we're sitting is that for all the stars in the darkest place on Earth you can go look at, there's more planets than all those stars.
Wow.
In the universe.
Wow.
And our galaxy has between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. I mean, that's kind of well known. But 100 billion to 400 billion means that some percentage of those are going to be Earth-like, potentially. Doesn't mean...
That they have oxygen and water, liquid water.
Liquid, see, that's the important one. Very good. The liquid water on the surface is the most important part. Because that means it's in a zone where life can exist that we know about. Now, there's always people that talk about life as we don't know it. I don't care about that.
You're right.
I care about life as we know it because there's going to be more than enough opportunity to find that. You know, we just need to find a planet that has something special in its atmosphere. And you know what that is?
No.
Come on. Think.
Why oxygenated air?
Spock, what do we need? Yes, exactly, oxygen. Okay, we need to find oxygen. And so in order to find oxygen, we have to look for the spectrum of oxygen in some distant exoplanet's atmosphere. Well, the problem with that is that the spectrum of oxygen shows up kind of in the visible part of the spectrum, all right? And they're called telluric lines. I can see them with my spectroscopes. But the thing is, those lines that you see are not things that the James Webb Space Telescope that's going to be going up can see. The James Webb is going to be...
That's going to be that enormous, right?
Yes, that's right. 21-foot diameter mirror versus Hubble's 8-foot mirror.
Yeah, that's going to be
and
awesome.
Hubble brought us some amazing things.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what this is going to show us?
So exciting.
Woohoo!
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, but the James Webb is going to only look with infrared eye, so it's only looking at the latent heat generated by these systems, by these places. But to find oxygen, it can infer the presence of oxygen by looking at carbon dioxide levels and by looking at methane levels. It can infer the presence of oxygen.
Okay.
All right, and that's going to help us greatly because now we'll be able to find planets that are potentially oxygenated atmosphere planets.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, but if somebody in 1988 said there's more planets than there are stars up there, wouldn't have people really opposed them hard and said that's not?
They would have said, fanciful thought there, Frank.
Right.
Get to the end of the line.
I love how these things change over time as we.
The trends have been that people have been ridiculed, and then what happens is when it's shown that what you were saying all along was true, you never get an apology from anybody.
Yeah, see, I catch myself here because I see some of these wackier ideas sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, well, in 1988, if somebody would have said that, it would have been a wacky idea.
That's right.
And in 1919, somebody would have said, well, this is just a little galaxy. There's a giant universe past that. That would have been ridiculed. And yet, as we learn more knowledge, those things get disproven. And,
That's right.
And they get accepted.
Yeah, we're on an ever increasing rung of another ladder step that we're trying to get up another rung in our understanding of the universe, and it's come to pass that we actually have a fairly good handle on the things that we do understand. We understand most of those pretty well, but what we don't understand are things like what happens when two black holes collide. They give off waves of gravity. We see the waves propagate like ripples in water. Okay, that tells you that they're rippling through something. They're propagating through something. That's the space-time fabric we're talking about. It's affecting space-time. If it's affecting space-time, it means that it's going to be something that is, space-time can be manipulated by gravity. And if it's doing that, it means something else. It means we can manipulate it at some point in the future. And some of these new phenomena like fast radio bursts. Have you heard of these guys?
Yes, I have recently.
Fast radio bursts are amazing because these are millisecond pulses that come from very, very, very distant galaxies. And we can tell they're very distant because of something called the dispersion. It means how far out that signal gets dragged out.
Okay.
Because when a light wave goes through all kinds of gas and dust between us and that far, far distant point, some of those frequencies get retarded just a little bit and they hang back. Some of those frequencies can keep coming through. And so based on that dispersion we see, we can find out how far it traveled. And this gives us unbelievable distances.
It's incredible.
Yeah, but these are millisecond pulses. Millisecond pulses. People say, oh, that's intelligent life. Well, we thought
Is that the thing a couple weeks ago? There was a thing about every 16 days we're getting this.
Yes.
What do you think of that? Is that?
I have a radio show on. It's called Sky Tour Radio. It's on KGRA and we just did a show all about that, as well as many other things. We call it the Potpourri, and we actually talked about all these different stories, including the 16-day thing. What is the 16-day thing we're talking about?
People do get very excited about when they see that. I saw this. I've been following it. It's every 16 days they see a radio burst.
That's right, from the same spot. And,
right.
And these are called FRBs. Ooh.
So now we have proof that alien life is sending a signal, right?
I know he wants to go there. I do too.
No, I don't want to go there. I'm just saying that's what people do say, right?
I do want to go there.
Yeah, right.
No, physically, I want to go there. No, yes, but when people see these things, the fast radio bursts, they show up. They go, zip, and they come through, and if you translate it to sound, it would go. It would sound like this weird little whistle if you made it into a sound. You take the frequencies and say it goes from this high frequency to a lower frequency, whatever. And when that happens, these radio bursts, again, in a millisecond this occurs, and sometimes they'll repeat, but they're kind of random if they do. This one, you can set your clock to. It's a new kind of radio burst, a fast radio burst. It is also from a long way away, and it is also coming to us, but it's every 16 days it shows up like clockwork, and they can't explain it. But they have a theory. They all have theories. We all have theories. Is it correct? Don't know. But here's what their theory is. The theory is that maybe we're looking at a massive star and another smaller magnetar. A magnetar is a really, really highly magnetic neutron star.
Okay.
It can come about after a supernova of a massive star. It can leave a magnetar behind, a neutron star that's really, really high powered in its magnetic field. It's these magnetars that theory says so far may originate these fast radio bursts. If these stars that create these fast radio bursts are encased in other material, then based on how the shock waves work, as this pulse leaves the star, it can be amplified to a huge degree and make this massive burst that we see galaxies and galaxies away.
So will this continue for quite a while then? This 16-day thing will probably keep coming and coming and coming.
Well, they're going to keep watching.
Yeah,
but
right.
see, the reason it's 16 days is because there's this magnetar, neutron star, they think, that might be orbiting a much more massive star. And so if it's orbiting, maybe it's giving off these bursts in a regular way, but then when it gets behind the massive star, they stop until it comes out again. And now those start again, and it goes behind the star and it goes away again. So what's the orbit of this magnetar?
32 days.
32. Well done. I thought you were going to say 16. See
in the casino.
He's good. He said 16. No, 32. He caught it. That was really, really perfect. Perfect. Yes, exactly. So it'd be like a 32-day orbit, maybe.
Yeah.
If it's that, and that's not unheard of. I mean, it's actually That means it's a really, really close star orbiting another massive star. And maybe it is spiraled into this other massive star because it may have disrupted or destroyed this other massive star if it went supernova in the past, which it did. But it's going to, we don't know. But these bursts are incredible.
Mark, I want to ask you this just a little. You're studying our universe and all these things that you guys are looking at.
Yeah.
A lot has been talked about lately about a simulated universe. What are your thoughts on this?
Simulated universe.
You know, yeah, that they think that this whole thing is that we are living in a simulation.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like the guy from Elon Musk was kind of put it out in the news a lot. It's been that guy Ritz, that physicist Ritz something, I can't think of his name right now, but they think that it's possible that they've seen these patterns repeat, and they think that this could be one of many universes, and it's just a simulation. I mean, that's as out there as it gets. I just want to see what your thought was on something that out there.
Well, let me explain it this way.
No.
Woohoo! Yeah!
Right.
I've been told no so many times. No, astronomers tell you what that thing is in the sky. Astrophysicists tell you kind of how it could work. Okay, they all overlap. And cosmologists tell you why it should work at all. Okay? Well, if you think of it from that point of view, what you're really talking about is cosmology. And whether or not what we exist in, the fabric and the time, space, and all of the parts of the universe that we exist in with all of its many dimensions that we may think are out there, whether that is just some kind of concoction that is created for some other purpose. And so the answer is, from a science perspective, there's no way that we can actually effectively answer that.
As many of these questions are. I think it's very hard to get my head around it, and I think I just wanted to see what you thought about it too, because it just seems so hard to even grasp.
It's another theory, and you know, if you're being honest as a science person, if you're being honest, you can't just say, oh, well, that's junk.
I want science people to be honest. That's what we're trying to do, is get to the truth here.
Right, you can't just render some kind of opinion like you know, especially if you don't.
Right.
And you know, having been in astronomy as long as I have, I can tell you that there are things I thought that astronomy would always be able to answer, and now it calls into question, like the rotation rate of the galaxy, right? And the fact that dark matter exists, dark energy. That's 96% of the universe now, and that leaves only 4%, what we call baryonic matter, you know, protons, neutrons, muons, gluons, and so ons. I like that. And, you know, when you have these baryonic particles, the baryonic matter, then you have, of that matter, that 4% that we think we know, again, 2% is missing. And it's missing mass that we cannot account for. And this is, that's in general, rough estimates. But it tells us that we don't really know, we don't know where all the mass is in the universe to have made the Big Bang.
These questions are all so large. You know, it's amazing that we even attempt to answer them. Well, Mark, before this camera blows up on us, all this stuff you talk about is so fascinating to me. I seriously am it's all very interesting to me. I could listen to you for hours. What would you recommend people look at or watch for in the astronomy field right now that's going on out there? What's the
Well,
next?
can I do a shameless plug?
Please, go right ahead.
You know, I have a book called The Populated Universe, which came about from that story with my observatory director. That it came about from that very interaction with him. I knew right then and there that it's a populated universe. And that phrase stuck with me forever. So I made my book, The Populated Universe.
I love it.
Yeah,
it's great phrasing too.
Yeah, it's available at the shows here with me, or it's available on Amazon, anywhere on the Amazon worldwide. But the thing is, that book gives anyone who reads it a basis of understanding of how life on our planet kind of evolved, and how the search for extraterrestrial presence anywhere will be undertaken here, now, and in the future. And it also talks about exoplanets. In astronomy, I've made my specialty exoplanets.
That's yours, is exoplanets. That's what you really
planets
focus
around
on.
Other stars, yeah. Because obviously it all starts there. We're going to look for a planet that has oxygen in the atmosphere, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Right.
And
because
liquid water.
Yeah, and you know why? Because guess what? Oxygen doesn't like to be in an atmosphere. It likes to bind with everything. It goes to iron like nothing. That's why Mars is red. Right? Fe2O3. It's rust.
Amazing.
You know, the oxygen came out of the atmosphere when it was disassociated from water molecules by the ultraviolet light from the sun, made its way into the ground. Mars rusted as the atmosphere dwindled away. And so, if there was oxygen in our atmosphere, it means that the oxygen is constantly being drained into the ocean, which is also a carbon sink. It's also drained into the minerals, where it actually binds with other things and oxidizes. Right? Everything oxidizes. You know, you get this. You have to scrape this corrosion stuff off, and that's oxidation that's caused by oxygen. Well, that's less oxygen in the atmosphere because it's binding up with stuff, right? So you can imagine that at some point in the future, all the oxygen that was ever made in the atmosphere will be gone if it wasn't being replenished. Aha.
So you need life there to replenish that life by turning carbon dioxide into oxygen.
You took my class. No, I'm kidding. But yes, that's exactly right, Ron. In fact, yeah, you actually you hit it kind of right on the head. So if we can find oxygen in an exoplanet's atmosphere, then that's telling us that it's probably being replenished. Now, there's geologic sources for oxygen. Mars does this, okay, to a lesser extent. But the geologic sources can only account for so much. You know, we've got amounts in our atmosphere that are literally ridiculously high. In fact, the reason we're here today is because of a little-known fact, and that is that the Earth is in what's called disequilibrium. It's not in equilibrium. It's actually sort of out of sorts. And because it has this overabundance of oxygen created by life, the Earth is not stabilized, so to speak, okay? It's in disequilibrium, not equilibrium. And that actually promotes life.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting thought.
It's fascinating stuff. Thanks for sitting down with us.
No worries, man.
For Tony Sweet, I'm Captain Ron at Truth Be Told, and we are at the, what are we at? Mega UFO Conference 2020.
UFO Mega Conference, yeah, MegaCon, yeah. Captain Ron, he's the guy, man, I'm telling you.
We'll see you guys later. Thanks. Hey, it's Captain Ron back with Truth Be Told.
Captain Ron.
I tackled Mark again to talk to us a little bit.
Next time, easy, will you?
Yeah, I know. It's I had to rustle him over here to the chair.
Grab me by the neck and yank me. That was hard, man.
We didn't get a chance to talk about some of the UFO stuff. And Mark, you say you're a UFO hunter.
Yeah, and what does that really mean?
That's the question.
You know, okay, well, let me find someone that knows. No, UFO hunters basically are people that want to actually find the truth, of course. And so, as MUFON's Mutual UFO Network's chief photo and video analyst, I see videos from all over the world kind of all the time. But on a personal level, I'm trying to do things that are going to help find UFOs. And from a scientific perspective, there are people that always say, I believe we're not alone in the universe. Yeah, I know. That's what my book's about. My book is about, the populated universe is my book. And this is not a shameless plug.
It was, but go ahead.
I know it was. I know.
Well, you slipped it right in there, Mark. It's fine.
It wasn't intentional. Yes, it was, but not. Okay, let me finish. So the populated universe is about astronomy and exoplanets, but it gives people who want to believe we're not alone a scientific validation for why their beliefs are sound. Okay, now, but then the next question is, okay, I believe and we have science behind us on why that may be true. Now we have to show that this is true. Showing it's true is not as easy as believing it's true, is it? Okay, and the statistics about however many planets might be populated like the Earth out there are just guesswork. We don't have any definitive answers.
Right.
So we have to do the search. We have to hunt for real UFOs, these real, if they're craft from extraterrestrial civilizations plying the gulf between the stars and coming here, we have to find them. If they're interdimensional shifted entities that are coming from other places, we have to devise a scientific methodology for finding them.
Right.
Capturing them on some type of device so we can say...
This is the hardest part when we talk to these people. That
right.
You got to give me something more.
That's right. And I'm one of those people that says, give me something more.
Right.
So I'm trying to make something more. Now, there's a famous visual effects guy, Academy Award winner. His name is Douglas Trumbull. He did 2001: A Space Odyssey with Kubrick. He did, with Spielberg, he did Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He did Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Amazing.
Right? And he did Blade Runner with Ridley Scott. Okay? This man is a visual effects legend, right? Well, he's also an hour from me in Connecticut. And he's also a UFO hunter.
No kidding.
Yes, and I did an NPR show on the X-Files of Connecticut one time. And I said, all the things I had to say. And on the way out, the host said, we have to get you on with Douglas Trumbull next time. And I went, Douglas Trumbull?
Hell yeah.
I modeled my visual effects company and how it works after his type of technology. And his type of technology is called organic effects, where you actually do all the effects right there in the camera. You don't add any CG if you don't have to, all right? Because that gets you more bang for the buck, and it's more realistic many times, okay? And I said, wow, Douglas Trumbull. And he said, yeah, he's a UFO hunter, like you.
How great.
And it blew my mind.
That's awesome.
I went home, wrote an email to an email I found for Douglas Trumbull online. I figured I wouldn't hear from him. Half hour later, I get a 2-page email from Douglas Trumbull. I had that line on my email, Douglas Trumbull. I was like, wow. And I'm staring at it going, I'm never going to delete this.
That's awesome.
Right? You know?
Awesome.
So then the thing says, I went to your visual effects site, excellent in every respect, which is very kind. And he says, we could use you right now. Okay, but my wife Julia says, we can't talk about UFOs until shooting is wrapped. I went, I don't care, okay, fine. So I went up and we worked on a commercial for Burger King. Okay, it was a test shot. He doesn't do commercials. He doesn't like that work. But we did this beautiful, amazing work for Burger King. And then afterwards, he said, we'd like to continue with you. And I said, excellent. I can't believe we're doing this. So we've been friends ever since, and that was
cool.
7.5 years ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's a guy I've always wanted to meet, you know. And we talked about UFO hunting. So he had a Humvee that had a top that opens up, and this what's called a theodolite, this large pan tilt mount that moves at very, very high speed with very, very heavy telescopes on it, could seek and track things flying through the sky that didn't belong there.
Amazing.
Anomalous stuff. And I said to him, kind of as he was thinking it too, we were both thinking it, what if we could just get rid of the Humvee, get rid of that giant equipment, that's almost hundreds of thousands of dollars actually for all that stuff.
Yeah.
What if we could condense it down into a little 24 to 36 inch diameter platter of instrumentation that can do all the same detection for us without a lot of moving parts that can go bad? And then you could just put them on a mountaintop where you can put the thing in a backpack, put it up on a mountaintop, and deploy it. Okay, where you can't go.
And
with
leave it alone remotely.
And leave it alone. Let a solar
cool.
panel power it. What if we could do that? And he's like you said, awesome. I like the idea. And so I got some scientists together, some Lawrence Livermore guys, and we actually came up with some ideas. And now we're actually waiting for some funding, which is really hard to come by because originally it was called UFOTOG, UFOTOG. The word UFO was in the name. There goes the money.
Yeah, right.
The other way.
Sucks.
Come back.
Sucks.
You know? Yeah. So now we call it the AADS. The what? The Aerial Anomaly Detection System.
Right.
That's right.
Like they changed UFO to aerial.
UAP.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Unidentified aerial phenomena. Well, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's okay, and because this device like ours can also track meteors, it can also track asteroids, it can do that kind of thing. So that's where we're going with ours.
Very
okay,
cool.
We're trying to do that.
Super exciting.
Yeah,
that
it is.
Super exciting.
You know what it's going to do? And you know this, Captain Ron.
It's going to open it up.
It's going to open it up. It's going to make it so that when we actually have real data, now science can look at real data and not just hear people saying, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, we all believe.
Yeah.
It's logic now, but just saying I believe just doesn't cut it for science.
Enough. That's right.
No, you need to actually have some.
Well, that's an
substantial
exciting. That's an exciting development. I'm really. God, I hope that gets through soon. I'd love
Yeah,
to see
we've been working on it for several years.
So you look at the stuff from MUFON.
Yeah.
Is a lot of it not very good? Can you tell it's a hoax? Is that kind of what you determine when you're doing it?
See, for my job with MUFON, what I do is it depends on your skill set. To be a photo analyst, you can't just be a guy that knows cameras. You can't just be a guy that knows astronomy. You've got to know astronomy. You've got to know earth science. You've got to know cameras. You've got to know the ins and outs of how they work. You have to understand how cameras make pictures, take pictures that can be mistaken for something else, even if it wasn't the intent of the photographer to take something. And there's so many sciences that you have to, I think, understand to be able to adequately figure out what there is.
I'm sure.
And you also have to be kind of a computer science guy. You have to have knowledge of computer-generated imagery, CGI.
Now they can do such amazing things.
A 14-year-old in his underwear in the basement can produce photorealistic stuff.
Not necessarily in his underwear. You don't have to add that stuff, Mark. Just a 14-year-old. I got it.
I was that guy, though.
Okay.
Just when I was 14, they didn't even have these things. Okay.
Wow.
So I guess it's a bit of a stretch, but no, it's true. And I know that when we look at some of the footage we see, I have to look at it from a CG point of view. Is it computer generated? I have to look at it from the camera artifact error. I have to look at it from a point of view of intent. Is this intended to fool somebody? And I put it through the ringer. And I'm really hard on data, and people kind of don't like me for that. But guess what? If I didn't do that, I'd be doing you and everybody else that follows me a disservice.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I love that. Now let's look at the other end of the spectrum. Have you seen stuff that you think, okay, what could this be?
I actually have. In fact, our observatory, which we talked about last time, is called Sky Tour Livestream. It's a channel on YouTube. Anyone can subscribe. It's free.
No.
And during Sky Tour Livestream's broadcasts, sometimes in the early days, I was actually out in the dome and looking through the slot and getting the telescope aligned and working. It's all remote now, but I used to do a lot of the operations in the dome, even though the telescope was remote, just to make sure it was going right.
Sure.
And there was one night when I went out there and I looked in the sky and I saw this array of lights up in the sky. And now I'm an astronomer and I'm looking at this saying, that's not a star. What is that? I have no idea what that is. It wasn't moving. It was actually stock still. And believe me, as an astronomer, and someone who knows how planes look and all their varieties moving through the sky, including some of the Black Project stuff, okay, I recognize this as not any of those. And I'm thinking, because it was actually stock still, I was doing compositional comparisons to the nearby stars and realized that thing doesn't belong there. I don't recognize that. So I thought, oh, am I looking at a supernova that just went off? Is that a supernova? And I started consulting charts, and I looked for the star that might be there. And I was like, no, that's not a supernova. And it's still there now, okay? And then I went back to the chart, and I said, then what is that? I looked back, it was gone. Like, all right. Now, that couldn't have been a satellite because it didn't actually move. Now, I was thinking, was it a distant satellite? It could have been a very distant satellite. I know that geosynchronous satellites, of course, they're 22,000 miles out there over the same spot of the Earth. Had they had really, really bright panels, technically they could turn toward you if they rotated, and technically you might be able to see a reflection. But the light falls off as the square of the distance away from the thing. So that means that if something is twice as far away, the light's 4 times dimmer.
Okay.
If it's 4 times further away, it's 16 times dimmer. So you can see that it would be pretty dim pretty quickly. So it was too bright for that. So I couldn't figure out what that was. And to this day, I don't know what it was. It might have been a satellite. It certainly wasn't an aircraft. It wasn't one of those drones, a typical drone. I know people out there might think, it was probably a drone.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I have an entire fleet of drones. Okay, and
Well,
I know what
interesting.
those look like.
What about stuff that's been submitted to MUFON, though? Have you seen footage of things that you think seem pretty good?
Oh, that was kind of your original question, wasn't it?
That was. And
yeah, and I went off my own little
I'm surprised
tangent.
you didn't mention the book, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know, which book? Oh, you mean The Populated Universe?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what do you think? Is there something? Have you seen something that you thought this is a credible piece of evidence?
So far, with all the videos I've seen with MUFON, I've been able to identify them to a reasonable certainty as things that are either man-made or errors in the way the camera worked. I know that doesn't sound like I'm a lot of fun at parties.
No, that's great. I mean, that's what I want. I want 99% of it to be wrong so that we have something we know this could be something else.
That's right. We know that that's true, okay? But I know that, that final little 1%, so as you're referring to, the only case I ever saw like that actually came to us in our history. It was in 1953 even.
Wow,
old
footage.
I think it was an old footage. It was only 8 seconds long, or 3 seconds long. And it was footage taken by a father with his daughter at some type of stadium. Nick, I can't remember the name, I'm drawing a blank mind. Okay, that just means there's more room for knowledge. Okay, so what happened was he took footage of these 2 bright objects moving through the sky, and they went behind the arrays of the light posts or whatever it was at this field.
Stadium.
Yeah, and it was like with a 16 millimeter camera, film camera. And he took it really fast because film's not cheap, right? So you don't waste it on that. And they went zipping through the sky together, and it was really fascinating. I looked at it and thought, well, could that be a meteor? A meteor missing the Earth. We call those Earth grazers. They graze the atmosphere and go through. But when they do that, many times they'll be bright, but they'll also leave a little train behind them of smoke.
Okay.
because the atmosphere is boiling off stuff, is burning off stuff. That's called ablation, and they will actually cause the material to trail behind them. None of that whatsoever, just bright reflections, bright spots. Whether the light was reflected from the sun or whether it was actually internally created, I don't know. And that's the only one I've ever seen that I can't explain.
Interesting. Well, I got one more for you then. Then we'll let you go until I tackle you later and bring you back over.
Okay.
But for now, what about this? A couple of years ago, they had the Navy TikTok video.
Yes.
That got a lot of.
I analyzed that for MUFON, yeah.
Loved it. If there's a guy's opinion I want to hear on that video, it's yours.
Okay, well then, I can tell you this. So far, the videos that were released by, To the
ATIP,
Stars,
yeah.
and as part of the ATIP program, yeah. All of those videos, to me, don't seal the deal, and I'll tell you why. I'll go through them one by one. Okay, the Tic Tac video. It doesn't do anything that an ordinary aircraft couldn't be doing. Now, you look at the shape and say, well, it looks like a Tic Tac. You've got to understand the nature, I think, of how that thing was being acquired. It was being acquired by an infrared system. Okay, the infrared system was seeing very, very large hot spots. It might have looked like a Tic Tac because it was.
But there might be wings that we're not seeing.
Of course, but it was actually not just a few hundred feet away. It was miles away. Okay, that's what they told us, and it was elongated. Now, if you look at an F-18 Hornet from behind, and I'm not saying that's what this was. Don't get mad at me. Okay, if you look at an F-18 Hornet from behind, you have two hot spots for the engines. The farther away they go, the closer those apparently are. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a certain point where if you're looking at just with the infrared, which is heat, you're going to see both of those nozzles going to look like one but elongated. So I wasn't convinced that Tic Tac wasn't just another F-18 Hornet. Why? Because it didn't do anything that indicated it wasn't another aircraft.
I thought that the pilot's description was that it went down and then it went straight up.
Okay, now we're coming to something else.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. On the released video, which I was asked to analyze,
okay,
there's nothing there that tells us that it went at unbelievable speeds. At the end of the video, it kind of goes out of the frame. And you're told by the pilot said, yes, it shot off. Okay, and people were saying, well, see, when it went left like that, it shot off. But that's not what happened. What I saw in that part of the video was we're looking at the AT FLIR pod on the bottom, the Raytheon AT FLIR pod on the bottom of the Hornet, okay? That's a very complicated machine, all right? It tracks things in the sky.
And it's heat. It's
a heat sensor, right? But when it tracks something, the plane could be going that way, and the sensor could be pointing that way, and it can move all over the sky to a relative degree, a targeting cone area.
So the thing that necessarily moved, this might have moved.
Right, and when it reset, you could tell there was a motion that looked like it was a little too mechanical to me, and I can't tell for sure, but I could tell that something might have moved and reset, and when that reset to the front again, that thing would have shot off to the left.
Now that makes perfect sense to me, except we do have the I forgot he's the colonel and the pilot Fravors account saying that it shot off. So I mean,
right, but was that the one where it shut off, or did it shoot off when it was at the surface and shut off? Because there's there's more to it.
Supposedly there's a lot more of these videos
as
well.
That's right.
And we've had the radar operator
Yep.
here talk to us, and he saw all this behavior too, and he told me how it was a couple meters off the ocean, and then it went straight up in the air.
Yeah.
And the way it appeared at the spot where they were going before they knew it. I mean, there's a lot of other interesting facets of this story that seems to be one of the most credible UFO sightings that we've seen.
Yeah, and what I'm being critical of is what's been released.
Right.
Okay, what was released doesn't tell the story. It doesn't seal the deal. Okay. The gimbal video where you see this thing rotating and you hear the guy say, "Oh, it's rotating."
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a flare that's rotating. Okay. It's an infrared flare from the gain being very high enough to catch this object. And what people don't notice is every time you see that flare rotate, it has spikes on it, and you see the spikes rotating in a way that aircraft couldn't possibly do, right? But what you're missing is when that thing rotates, every time it rotates, the sky, the clouds bump a little. That's telling you that's something inside the pod. There's a little filter maybe on the front of the pod, a little that's rotating. Maybe it won't be a polarizer, but it's something else. And as that rotates, okay, the clouds jump just a tiny bit. So it's a one-to-one. As this rotates, these bounce. Every time it does, these bounce. So that told me, okay, that's a systemic error. That goes to the pod. That's not actually really happening in real life. Okay?
Got it.
All right? And I'm sorry. Okay, the weapons officer said, look, it's rotating. Yeah, the filter was rotating. He's looking at the infrared too. I mean, he could be fooled.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, these guys know their stuff inside out. Yes, they do. Okay, but why he said it's rotating, was he talking about this flare rotating? Maybe he saw something visually that we couldn't see. Again, not enough information provided.
I hope we get more video footage of
I
this
agree
so
with
that
that.
you could take a look, because I'd really like to know more.
I would too.
I bet you would.
I would too.
I love your description of this. I love, because people do love to jump right ahead to, oh, I know what this was. This was a UFO, means it's an extraterrestrial craft.
I know.
You and I both want it to be an
We
extraterrestrial
both
craft.
do. We both do.
But in the vast majority of cases, it's not. And often I think, I don't have your knowledge, but I often think, why couldn't that be a test plane? Why couldn't it? Could be so many other things.
Yeah, there's things
are
that have been
tough.
flying that are black projects that have been also trailed by other aircraft that are doing data collection for the black project. You know, when people say, look,
They're chasing it.
They're chasing it.
Right.
Oh my gosh, they're chasing this gigantic thing,
Right.
this gigantic UFO, they're chasing it.
Yeah.
Well, look, if it was a Borg cube flying through the sky, then I might agree. Yeah, that's definitely something pretty exotic. But if it's an aircraft-looking thing, then the chances are it's probably one of ours.
Yep.
You know, do you know how many times they send up a plane to do that kind of testing? And they never send it up alone. It's always trailed by another aircraft, conventional aircraft that can be recognized. You know,
Makes sense when you look at
does.
this stuff logically, and I love. You just got to bring that back into this
Yeah.
world. Like, we need a little bit of this science on it.
But I
think
gotta
it's
point
good to look
something
at.
out, though.
Please.
I gotta point something out. You're the captain. This is your ship. But I gotta point something out. Okay, I don't have all the answers. I know I don't have all the answers, and I know that what I'm saying sounds so definitive and authoritative, and that's not at all what I'm trying to say, although it's coming out that way. The fact is, there's a lot of things we don't understand. I'm critical of the video that was released, yes, because it doesn't tell us the whole story, but they're trying to tell us it does. And then people take the video that was released and see things in it that's not there.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm
I don't
calling
like
out.
that stuff either.
That's
I
the only
can't
thing I'm
stand
calling
that.
out. That's all.
Yeah.
You know, is
But I like
more.
getting the other parts of it too. Like, we had the radar operator in here, and
Yeah.
he talked to us. I like hearing his account.
Yeah,
And
Patrick and Richard Day.
yeah, Richard Day was on.
Yeah,
and
I know Richard.
He's great, and
Good
his
buddy.
account is, and the fact that he documented it a long time ago. You know, this happened years ago.
Yeah.
And he had documented it at the time and wrote it down. Really is strong.
Yeah.
So that to me supports that as well. So I like to see other things supporting it.
Yeah, I agree with that
Nice
100%.
to see some solid stuff.
Yeah. You know, and you know, I know Richard, he's a good guy, a good friend, and I know Patrick, the other guy. Okay, these folks are all just solid people that just, you know, were, well, at the right place at the right time, I guess, right?
Yeah.
At the time, it might have been the right place at the wrong time for them because they couldn't talk about it for a long time,
Yeah.
you know, and then they are allowed to.
Dave felt so just this relief when it came out, because he's
The
been
weight
holding that
came
inside.
off.
Yes, he couldn't
Yeah.
ever talk about this because he wasn't allowed to.
Yeah.
And then once they put it on TV, he could go, here, look, I wrote this
Yeah.
when it happened.
Yep.
Good for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know those guys, you know, they have my my respect for coming out and saying things.
Yeah.
And I know that some of them did it with trepidation. They're very tentative because they were afraid for what might happen later. And so I understand. I understand that, and they're good guys. You know.
Well, man, thanks for giving us a real look at this stuff instead of just jumping to conclusions and telling us how it really works.
Yeah.
It's really good to hear,
Can't
man.
jump to conclusions with this, man.
That's right.
You know.
But we want it. We want it. I mean, we're looking, and I'm glad you're out there hunting UFOs, as you say, and we all appreciate it. For Tony Sweet, I'm Captain Ron at Truth Be Told. We are at the 2020 UFO Mega Conference in Laughlin, Nevada, and we'll see you later.